Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. I'm just getting my devices all queued up here. Give me a quick second. Glad to see you, Max. I see you there. Hello, Williams. Thanks for joining in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you all? We are up and going. Max, nice to see you, my friend. This is the Been Checking In podcast, episode number 26. We've passed the 25 mark yesterday. We're into 26 today. Today is August the 6th, 2021. And you are listening to the Been Checking In podcast. Today's question, we are answering what makes you feel energized and refreshed? What makes you feel energized and refreshed? Looking forward to jumping into this one today. Bin Checking In podcast exists for three reasons. We love to do the Bin Checking In podcast because it, one, helps us grow in awareness of ourselves. This is an area that I'm continuing to grow in and wanting to devote more time to. Secondly, because I want to learn how to be kind to myself, and I'm inviting you along in this process. Thirdly, to learn how to be kind to ourselves because we need more kindness in this world today. But especially in reference to how we think about ourselves, how we interact with ourselves, how we have that storyline going on in our minds, and really important commitments. So these are the three things we like to work on together as we spend time here on the Bin Checking In podcast. We do this by asking self-reflexive questions, and I find these helpful for me, and I hope you also find some benefit in them as you hear my reflections answering these questions. So today is the 26th episode. I am so thrilled at seeing the consistency going on so far. Thank you for joining me. We are going to make some big waves as we commit to focusing on our home base first, because it's from the home base as we look outward that we can really make a really amazing impact on others. First and foremost, by tending to ourselves. And this is an area that I really want to continue to grow in for myself. So, I'm glad you're here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments. Let's dive into today's question. Today's question is, what makes you feel energized and refreshed? I'm already giddy inside when I'm thinking about this question, because how often do we take time to think about the things that give us life? How often do we take time to reflect on what brings us joy? What brings us that sense of purpose in whatever we're committing ourselves to? This is one of those questions that enables us to actually spend some time focusing on it. What makes you feel energized and refreshed? This is one of those questions that has to do with our well being. And as we continue to grow in awareness of ourselves, it's really helpful to know what are the things that are a really good influence, even as we reflect on things that may not be so helpful. And this is one of the questions that enables us to say, hey, what is it that brings me that sense of joy, nourishment, energy, refreshment? These are some fantastic things worthwhile thinking about, because the more we think about these elements here, the more we're able to devote more time in them. And so for me, my goodness, I can't wait to share with you some of mine. It gets me in that really energized, optimistic mode. But let's talk about the question a little bit first. This is an important one to reflect on, because in the absence of reflecting on this, sometimes we may enjoy those moments. Hello, K-Man. Good to see you, my friend. As we reflect on, when we don't reflect on these moments, if we don't take time to reflect on these moments, we may just enjoy them almost by happenstance. We may not be able to schedule them saying, hey, this is something amazing. And so when we just sort of take things on just, hey, it happened, but now I don't know how to bring it back in, we might miss those opportunities to continue to reflect on how we can help ourselves move on to the next stage of wherever we're working ourselves towards. I like this one here also because it gives us that ability to analyze and say, what are those zones whereby we can experience these emotions that fill us up again in a good way instead of running ourselves ragged. I'm not sure if you're like me, but I'm one of those individuals that is go, go, go. Even one of my really dear connections last night was mentioning how I'm very quick in a lot of my emotions. And I never even noticed that for myself. I'm always like, what's next thing on the radar? And I'm always about productivity. What can I do to maximize that? But what does it take for us to actually slow down in those moments and say, let's enjoy this moment? It makes me think of road trips, for example. When I'm on road trips, I'm thinking in terms of point A to point B. How do I get from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time? Really, do I take the time to say, oh, look at this amazing view? Let's pull over. Let's enjoy this for what it is. Let's enjoy this sunset. What an amazing thing. Let's look at that bouquet of flowers on the side of the road. What an amazing thing to enjoy. Something along those lines, figuratively, is what I'm aiming for in experiencing, even as I consider this question in the course of life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a view, it doesn't necessarily have to be something tangible. It has to be something, I think, however, that gives us that sense that says, hey, in the midst of the time that we have, how can we take time out to be able to reflect on these things that, again, give us that sense of the world is at peace, that Zen moment of sorts? That's why I really appreciate this question. Is it gets me in the mode of thinking, how can I slow down to reflect on those things so that I can perhaps even strategically enjoy the more opportunities towards that? And I see you, Salam. How are you? Nice to see you joining in. Bert, I am awesome. Good to see you. Thanks for joining in. Today's question for those of you coming in: what makes you feel energized and refreshed? And I was suggesting, in the absence of taking time on reflecting on this question here, we may just enjoy them in the mere passing moments, but never actually reflect on how it impacts us, how it enables us to be competent or enjoying those moments in life that do come along the way. I also love the dynamic that it brings by way of reflection, and that is, how does it enable us to be able to savor those moments? I think I've gotten better at doing this in the past little while. And for me, what that savoring looks like is just reflecting on my age, for one. I'm getting older, and it seems the older we get, the more we're seeing how fast time goes by. One of those things that I often reflect on is how some people, um, as a parent, will mention to me because of their experience, how quickly the time goes. And I never get tired of reflecting on that question. It's somewhat ominous as I hear them saying their experiences went by so fast. And so they say, enjoy this moment. And whenever I hear it, I want to hear it almost as if for the first time again, because as I see and observe their reminiscing and how fast it went, there always seems to be that tinge of regret. There always seems to be that tinge of remorse that they never actually did savor those moments. And so I think, how can I seize this moment and sort of squeeze it like an orange for the juice that's there? And how can I squeeze the juice out of life in those moments? And so this is something that I do really well in some areas. And in other areas, I am really, really having to work hard on what that looks like. And then finally, I also appreciate this question because it gets us reflecting backwards. And as you may have heard from previous episodes on the Been Checking In podcast, when I'm reflecting backwards, it's usually with gratitude that I'm reflecting backwards. With gratitude, because as I look back, I'm thinking, here's where I once was. I have contrast to see where I'm going in the future. And it gives me some more intentionality in how I'm setting my trajectory going forward with reference to my past. I usually have my memories bringing me to the zone, to this space of gratitude. And so that's what I appreciate about this question. So, what makes you feel energized and refreshed? I'm even thinking with gratitude as I reflect on those moments, because with gratitude, I find a really fast track to happiness. And as you know, that's one of the premises of this podcast. How can we maximize our happiness? Not to the exclusion of the other emotions, because they are necessary, because they're all so important in their expressions. But in the processing, especially of a lot of those uncomfortable emotions, we have more space that we cultivate for happiness. So, those are some of the reflections I'm thinking on as I think about today's question: what makes you feel energized and refreshed? Well, let me share with you some of mine, and I'm happy to hear you guys as well as you're listening in. For me, the the experiences that leave me feel energized and refreshed, the ones that make me feel like I can take a deep breath with satisfaction, that sense of contentment, are ones when I'm able to reflect on one area, and that is my legacy of what I'm really hoping to leave behind that is going to build up others as well because of my existence. I feel energized and refreshed when I'm able to hear from others how my actions, how my decisions, how my example has impacted them. And one of those surprising ways of experiencing this has been quite unexpected. It was about a year and a half ago when I made the decision to go back on social media and get acquainted with so many of you. And in that short span of a year and a half, hearing back from so many of you guys how my work has been able to inspire and encourage you, how it's been really instrumental in seasons that have been difficult for you, how it's helped been in navigating posts for you, has really given me that sense of being energized. When you watch me in my Uber rides on my mom series, memorable Uber moments on my YouTube series or on my Instagram or TikTok series, as you watch me interact with some of my riders and some of those vulnerable moments that we share, and even the ones that never make it to camera or to being posted, those moments when I hear from others how instrumental it's been for them to meet me, how instrumental it's been for them to interact with some of the ideas that I've had, it leaves me energized in such a way where I say, I'm really thankful for what I had to go through to be able to get to this point. Those investments that were very challenging for me, those growth opportunities I had to go through, those uncomfortable seasons that I had to wade through, those times in my life that I was thinking, is this really worth it? Seeing the fulfillment on the other side where I get to share my story and I get to share it intentionally for a purpose. You see, I was very intentional even as I made all these decisions along the way. But seeing the fruition of all those choices on my end with those of you who have expressed gratitude, those of you who have expressed appreciation and love and adoration and all these things leaves me feeling energized and refreshed. It gives me a lot more incentive to say, I'm going to keep on sticking my oar deep in the water and rowing in this direction that I'm going towards because it makes me feel like this legacy that I'm building is worthwhile. This legacy I'm building is worthwhile because not only do I benefit from it, not only do I get energized and benefit in the way of being refreshed, saying, I have clarity of thought. I have clarity of purpose. Not only does it serve me, but I see how this legacy also impacts so many of you. And that lets me dream in really big ways where I say, I want to include more in this trajectory that I'm going. I want to be able to see others coming to a point where they're inspired and encouraged that they have hope now, where once upon a time they didn't have hope. They have something that they're aiming for now because they have some sense of clarity. And so I so appreciate I'm so thankful for these expressions that I've heard from you guys on an ongoing basis. And it makes me think I want more of that. But goodness, how much refreshment I get when I sit back and listen. And I don't listen with some air of like, man, I'm all that. Not at all. There's just, even as I hear you guys sharing those things, it breeds this humility within me saying, I can't believe I get to experience this. Money can't buy what I'm experiencing with you guys. There's something really legitimate and tangible and genuine and organic in the way it developed and evolved. And as I look back on it and I say, as I'm receiving it, I'm learning how to acknowledge, I'm learning how to receive it, I'm learning how to be able to say, okay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And it sure leaves me energized on the inside saying, this is worthwhile. Some of the things that also leave me feeling energized and refreshed is when I also am able to learn for myself. Now, this is the part where I'm still working on because I do really well in some areas, but in other areas, I am still a work in progress. But there are moments when I feel like I do really well at being able to just take something beautiful in. And why that's important for me is because I've lived for the longest time with a reference point that I was not as important as others around me, and that my needs were always going to play second tier because that's what it meant for me to be selfless, is to sacrifice self and not to tend to self really well. Now, I'm really fortunate in so many ways because my body, as much as I've abused it over the years, has still been able to retain its vitality, its energeticness, its youthfulness, apparently, because I also hear a lot about that as well. But even as I reflect on what my body's been able to endure, there are some areas that I do give myself kudos in this area that leave me energized and refreshed. And that is when I am able to reflect on beauty that is in this world, beauty that is without me in its expression. And there's some key elements here. For example, I live in Calgary, Alberta. One of the reasons I live here in this city is because in this city, hello, George, I see you. Fatigue, my friend. Good to see you, my friend. Guys, if you don't mind, I'm just going to wave whenever I see you coming on because I'm going to keep on track with the thoughts that I'm carrying on. But if you see me waving, it's me saying hi and acknowledging you guys coming in. But even as I reflect on my choice to live in this city, I live in this city primarily because it's in a beautiful setting geographically. One of the things I love about the city is the grand, expansive skies and the mountains that are on the horizon. The mountains are on the horizon in a beautiful way. Where the sky meets the mountains, it's like a huge range there on the horizon that I'm able to take my eyes for a walk on. And as I look at that, it's breathtaking. The mountains you can be in the midst like of an hour and a half drive. And as I come into the mountains, I also feel that sense of the world realigning. I may have some troubles on my mind. I may have some things I may be working through in my mind. But when I drive into the mountains, all of a sudden things seem to calibrate. And seeing how expansive these mountains are reminds me what's really important in life. And I really appreciate that grounding element of when I go there. And it leaves me with that sense of being energized again because everything is recalibrating in an appropriate way. So I'm a glutton for amazing views. I love seeing these views on the horizon here in Calgary. Additionally, we have some epic sunrises and sunsets. And so as I reflect on these things in nature that really bring me energy and leave me that feeling refreshed, one of the things I've done really well is learned how to slow down to enjoy these. Learn to enjoy them because they capture my attention. They capture my whoa, I need to see this. It's almost as if I pretend as if this panoramic view has been painted for me in the moment in its brilliance for just that moment. And this is something I want to take the time out to enjoy. So if I'm on my own, I'll just pull over to the side or find those spots where I can stand or sit and take it all in. I love that element because that's something that I'd never made time to do in my past. But being able to do that now, I'm encouraged that I'm able to do that. That is an example of me slowing down and saying, let me just pamper myself with what's in front of me because this is worthwhile enjoying. I want to take time out to savor this moment. I don't do that necessarily quite yet on road trips. I don't take a lot of road trips, but road trips are one of those things I want to keep on the horizon so that when I am on them, I'm not thinking in terms of get from point A to point B within this time. But what would it take for me to think about investing some margin so that I have some space to enjoy things that come up along the way? Maybe go for a walk on this trail here or something along those lines. That's not how my mind works, but I wanted to start thinking in reference to that because I feel that would be one way of intentionally energizing and refreshing myself along those lines. Something else that brings me to tears, literally, and yet also still makes me feel energized, encouraged, refreshed, is when I see beautiful expressions amongst humans. Beautiful expressions from one human to the next. Now, I love being active in this department. I love inspiring others because of things that I value and things that I want to do in such a way that I hope others will emulate. I love being an example that way, inspiring others. But I also am so thrilled. I am so energized and refreshed when I see one human doing something really significant for the next, especially when they don't know they're being observed, especially when it's done out of the right intention. There's some who do these kind of things because they want someone to watch them. I don't find those as inspiring as watching someone who takes the time out of their day to express something meaningful, something potently powerful by way of kindness, by way of empathy, by way of care to their fellow human beings. That I find so refreshing, so energy investing because it gives me that sense of hope that there's still expressions of goodness in this world that continue to make this world go round. Oh my goodness, that is what really impacts me. And I said I get emotional. I get really emotional when I see these expressions. I love it when it's especially shown on film when some bystander's saying, "Oh my goodness," and they just take a video of whatever's going on. Maybe it is. s- Um, Here's some of the powerful ones that I've seen along the way. When I see like a homeless person who's been given some food, but then they don't maybe eat all the food. They go for a walk to find their fellow homeless people, and then they share the very little that they have. It's in moments when I see someone at the store paying for someone else's order or grocery list because they just couldn't quite cut it. Man, that really gets me. That's an expression there of kindness that gets me deep inside saying that was worthwhile. And that inspires me to keep on doing what I'm doing. I find it's those beautiful, tangible connections that we make in our human experience of how it could be in this world, how it could be, especially in the reference to acknowledging someone else's existence, affirming them for where they're at, and enabling them to make it to the next stage in their life. Because, goodness, we know how life is difficult already, how much of a struggle it can be, and especially how we don't know where others are at in their own walk. We give such competent expressions of having everything together, and yet for most of us, we're just really in need of that display of kindness, of tolerance, of patience. These are the things I think that are really worthwhile. So these are some of the things that I think of that get me in this zone of feeling refreshed and energized to go forward. Recently, I had experience where I was just sitting down and receiving a fantastic massage. Oh, it was phenomenal. But the challenge for me came where I want to respond and also say, "How can I also serve you? How can I give back?" And this dear person is like, "Nope, I just want you to sit and receive." And that is not easy because I'm wired to say, how can I serve? How can I also give back? How can I pay back? But to be on the receiving end in such a way where you're not getting, like, where there's nothing by way of reciprocity is expected, actually, it's insisted. That's a challenging thing. Take that challenge, if you will, the next time someone wants to serve you, to just receive without feeling that need for giving back, for responding by way of saying, "How can I also now give back to you?" That's a humbling thing. That's a challenging point. But let me share with you what I'm experiencing on the receiving end as I intentionally work towards not responding back, even in the slightest like inkling of a movement, but just sitting there passively and receiving and how that serves my soul. Um, it's humbling, it's challenging, but it's also a really powerful way of releasing all that control to respond to expectations, saying, "I'm just going to receive everything internally this way." That's a tough thing. And yet it's a worthwhile investment by way of a discipline, if that can be a paradox, the discipline of sitting back and taking it all. That's worthwhile. So these are some of the things I'm experiencing and learning as I reference what does it look like for me to feel energized and refreshed. And then how can I reflect on this question ongoing whenever it comes up on a somewhat regular basis so that I'm making time for it? Because I'm not sure I'm yet in that zone. I'm still driven by productivity. I'm still driven by how can I make my time count because I only have this time and what can I show for it instead of, today I maybe didn't accomplish a lot, but I feel energized and refreshed because I was able to do some things in which no one may be able to see the effects of the productivity. I may not have much to show for, but internally, I have this sense of realignment, this calibration that brought me back to a place where I'm able to go forward. It's a bit of an epiphany when you're able to receive and take in these expressions of what brings you juice. Because as you're able to fill yourself up internally, it almost enables you to unlock new hemispheres of creativity in wherever you feel your sense of purpose or commitment in life is leading you. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think of this question. What makes you feel energized and refreshed? I'd love to hear your thoughts, by the way, too. And oh, hi, see you, Lewis. Thank you, Lewis, for saying wave, please. I see you. Uber driver, how are you? I'm awesome. How are you, my man? Good to see you coming in. The question today we were answering for those of you who are coming in was, what makes you feel refreshed and energized? I love these kind of questions again because these kind of questions enable us to reflect on how we grow as individuals. I love taking time out in these moments to reflect on these questions with you guys because I feel even as I commit to doing it myself, a lot of times people look at me and they say, wow, you're so well put together. You've got everything together and you seem like nothing's going on. No, I'm actually having to process a lot of these things in my life and how it enables me to grow as an individual. And as I do that, I find that even now I'm having reference points for growing personally. I don't think I'll ever arrive. I don't think I'll ever have everything put together. And that's why I want to make commitments like these in answering these kind of questions, in building this kind of a community that's on the same page so that we can mutually encourage each other towards and inspire each other towards the better versions of ourselves that we're aiming for. These three pillars that I have sort of focused on in this podcast, I value them deeply. I resonate with them strongly because I feel this is the pathway that I want to take in continuing to grow as a person. And I want to share these experiences with you because I also hope that they will help you in the same pathway. What does it look like for you to become more aware of yourself? I'm still learning about myself. I don't think there's everything to know about me that has been locked down. I'm making new discoveries and saying, I wonder why I think this way or I operate this way. I want to understand myself really well so I can understand how to draw the boundaries I need in my life, how to be able to express my needs appropriately. Second, what does it look like for me to be kind to myself? I always wasn't kind to myself. I used to shred myself in my self-analysis. But now I'm in a new season where I'm saying, no, this really matters that I'm able to think of myself in a way that I'm worthy of love. And you are too. What does that look like for you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what an amazing specimen of humanity I see in front of me? I could say that about you, but I want to challenge and encourage you to say that about yourself and to make that a pattern of how you're showing kindness to yourself. And thirdly, what does it look like for us to grow in our happiness, our experiences of happiness? You know, there are so many other beautiful emotions, a lot of them which are uncomfortable, that many of us want to avoid and sort of push under the carpet. And it takes courage to work through those emotions, to work through those experiences that bring that sense of uncomfortableness, that sense of fear, that sense of, wow, this is bigger than I am. I'd love to be able to walk alongside you even as you work through those, because as you process and work through those, it makes a space for you to be able to have more happiness because you've done the hard work necessary. My dear friends, thank you for joining this episode. This has been episode 26 of the Been Checking In podcast. Feel free to leave your comments in the chat, in the video on the YouTube stream and the Instagram live stream. But thank you for participating with you. Thank you for the love and encouragement you have thrown my way. I so value you guys. I love what we're doing together as we focus on these elements. And I'm looking forward to growing with you as we go forward. For now, this is Binyam on the Bin Checking In podcast. Today is Friday, so you won't be seeing me until Monday again. But until then, let me encourage you to take time out for those moments. I know I'm going to this coming weekend of what does it look like for me to reflect on these things that bring me refreshment and energy. The next one, Lewis, is going to be on Monday. Monday, same time in the morning. I hope to see you then. Bye for now.